Hey guys! So today we are answering a subscriber question, and the question in question was, Frederick, what rules must a programmer follow? So let's get into it. Well, I suppose that I can think of about 2 or 3 things that would be things that we must follow, because that's the key word here. What do you have to do, or what must you follow in order to achieve something, right? Because there's quite a lot of things that we should do, but the musts, that's a trickier. But let's start with the first one that I believe should be a must, which is first and foremost, you need to follow deadlines. You need to be able to deliver on time. And nothing is more important than being able to deliver on time. It doesn't matter what language you pick, doesn't matter how you feel about functional programming, object-oriented program, React, Vue, Angular, it doesn't matter what you believe at all. Nothing is more important than that. If you produce code too late, it's not valid. It's, for the most part, not valuable to the company. So whenever you work, you will have to figure out ways, regardless of situation, and that's the key thing here. Regardless of the circumstances, you need to be able to solve the problem, given the constraints that you have on time. I don't know how many discussions I've had with people who come on the comment sections, or I talk to people in real life and so forth, and this is usually a testament to how junior you actually are. The most classic thing is that somebody says, oh, well, if I have to do this, I'll just use that library or this library, or I'll just do that. Like, it's just, when I hear people like that, I kind of just tune out immediately, because I can immediately hear that they haven't worked for real, like as a professional. Because things can get to the point, guys, where you have no choice. You have no choice. It's such an easy thing to sit with the beginning of something and talk from the perspective of somebody who has just kind of glanced at the problem and immediately kind of knows, because they know all the tools, right? That they know how to solve this problem. But a real expert, or somebody has been doing this for enough time, will be able to, at the very least, be a little bit conservative and say, well, maybe I shouldn't just assume that I know exactly how this problem is structured and the intricate details of this problem before I actually start working. I should probably do a little bit of research, because at the end of the day, you're forced to deliver on time. And unless you really know the details, it's very hard for you to say how challenging something is going to be. And I don't know how many times I've seen this happen, where people kind of just roughhouse something and they think something is going to be super simple, and it turns out that, hey, it was actually more complicated than they thought. And that's usually the norm. And most of the time, these situations, they arrive because of the second thing that we must abide by. And the second rule that we must all abide by is that no matter how good we are, no matter how masterful we are at writing software, we can be geniuses, it doesn't matter. We will all produce legacy, all of us. We will always be able, at every single project that is non-trivial, will have legacy code, or parts of the code that limits future possibilities of making decisions. And that is one of the worst things, to get that realization that often in software development, you only have one chance to get something right. And what I mean by that isn't that I mean that you can't go back and change it. I say that from experience, I can tell you that usually you don't get the option of going back and fixing it. Or at the very least, the stuff that you put into the code base is going to stick around for quite a lot of time. It's very rare that you get to a point where you can just add something in and then kind of go, well, this is not ideal, or this is something we can try out, and then we can just strip it out. No, what usually happens is that you put it in and you deliver the feature, and then when you get to a point where you feel like, nah, this is getting kind of ugly, we really should refactor this, there's a ton of other stuff, a million other things that your stakeholders are going to expect from you, which hinders you from actually rewriting something or refactoring it or fixing it. It's that classic saying where if you set a to-do on something you should do, it's never going to happen. And I know for a fact that this is true. I don't know how many code bases I've seen where there's a to-do somewhere, and it takes forever. Most of the time it doesn't get fixed. So basically having having a understanding that legacy is something that will stick around for a long time should be the sort of thing that influences your thought process. One of my favorite ones that kind of proves this point is CSS, where if you get CSS wrong at stage one, when you first implement the feature of for something, if you don't do this in a correct manner, then the second person who comes after you is all but locked down into the choices that you have already made. And the only option they now have is either to rewrite the stuff that you did, or they have to, which usually is what happens, is that they will override what you have already written. And then they just shuffle the problem further down. Then the next person who comes after that has the same choice. And this continues until such a time and to such a point where any feature updates to this feature takes longer and longer and longer, and it's getting uglier and uglier and uglier until it doesn't work anymore and you have to rewrite the whole component from scratch. So this is something that is truly, truly common it's not just, of course, in CSS, it's just a regular thing where, people have deadlines, they hack something together just quickly and then, of course, they make ad hoc decisions that they have to make, but that all ultimately usually leads to legacy. And then finally, the rule that you need to abide is that you need to communicate with stakeholders if you want anything done at all. You see, the dirty little secret for quite a lot of people is that your skills and your ability to program is somehow the determining factor in how well you do in your career and how likely you are to get something done. The most frustrated programmers that I know are the idealistic programmers who want to push for best practices, but at the same time who have only an engineering perspective of things. And you have no idea how often it is that it doesn't really matter what you want, because if you have a business person or a manager, some type of person who doesn't agree with your mindset or your viewpoint on things, they will not allow you the time to do what it is that you want to do. And the frustration for a lot of people here comes that, you're the developer, you should be able to make these decisions. No, because you're on company time. And as long as you're on company time, they tell you what you should be doing. And your ability to communicate with people and have a voice, if you will, is the thing that will determine how well you will do. And the paradox of this is that unless you don't do this, you might actually end up in the same situation as I said earlier. You might actually have worse deadlines and more legacy. So your ability to communicate and actually be the sort of people person, you actually have to be able to do this, is actually going to have a big impact on how well the project progresses and how maintainable it becomes. So what I want you to take away from this is that there are, in my world, at least 3 rules that all of us have to abide by. And the first one is that you will have to abide by the deadline. It doesn't matter how you feel, doesn't matter what you think is good, what's bad. All of this political bullshit that we have in programming is completely pointless in the face of a deadline. Second thing is, you will all have legacy, regardless of what you pick. I don't care if you work in Haskell or C, if you work in JavaScript, every single system has legacy or issues somewhere. Even at the scale of Facebook and Google and so forth. There's no such thing as a perfect code base. And usually you have legacy for quite a while. So if you fuck it up in the beginning of things, it's very likely that you're going to have that stick around for quite some time and maybe fix it over a long period of time at a high cost. And lastly, your ability to effectively communicate with other people is the determining factor in how well your career is going to go and how well your project is going to stay maintainable, or the decisions that are being made. Because at the end of the day, you have to collaborate with people. They don't have your expertise, but they still have the influence to actually stop you from getting capacity or getting time to do certain things. And that basically leaves you in a situation where you need them to agree with you in order for you to be able to do your job in the way that you want it to be done. So having soft skills is something that you're going to have to acquire in order to get anywhere, or unless you really want to sit there and be really, really frustrated and angry that you never get anything done. Have a great day.